The body is the servant of the mind. It obeys the operations of the mind, whether they are deliberately chosen or automatically expressed.
I do know that if I get up in the morning and I tell myself this is going to be a wonderful day, and my body, no matter how old it is, no matter how pain-filled it might be at the moment, I know that I can be healed and I am willing to accept healing. And as we move toward those ideas rather than, oh, poor me, you know, all my family's always died young, you know, all those things, those are negative things that we're just planting seeds into our consciousness that are going to bear fruit. So I'd much rather think to myself that, you know, life is wonderful and I am so grateful to be here. So whatever's going on, it's for my good. I call it good, and I know that I'm not here to suffer, so I choose to release. The thought is I choose to release any suffering, any pain, any anxiety, any frustration, any fear. God is the source of all my good, and God is the source of my health. I accept it now. Maybe you have the thought, oh my God, I'm not feeling good today. Well, that may be true, but another thought is, what can I do to make myself feel better? And so it's not a denial that you're not feeling so hot, but instead of focusing on the negative, you start looking for solutions and opportunities.
Hey everybody, welcome to iThinketh, the webcast dedicated to As a Man Thinketh, the book written by James Allen, and the documentary by the same name, As a Man Thinketh, which I put together as a brand new documentary, and it's screening currently around the country. You can go to thinkethmovie.com for details on where you can check it out. Today's show, we're going to be checking in with Marianne Padalano. Marianne is featured in the film, and we're going to be talking about the effect of thoughts on our body. And we're also going to be checking in with Rev Galen McDowell, the assistant minister at Christ Universal Temple in Chicago, Illinois. They're going to be showing the film here very soon. But before we get started, I wanted to share with you, I was going through some information this week, just trying to find out some more information that I could share about the book and what's going on with the film. And I'm always coming across things that I didn't really plan on coming across. One thing I came across this week was, this is an article from Business Insider, and it's all about Tony Robbins and how As a Man Thinketh by James Allen is one of his very favorite books. And anyway, it says here that it's recognized by Inc.com as one of the 10 most motivational books of all time. And these are 3 of Tony's takeaways from As a Man Thinketh. Number 1, you control your destiny. While people often believe fate, luck, or other circumstances are the driving forces behind one's success, As a Man Thinketh argues otherwise. You cannot choose your circumstances, Allen writes, but choosing your thoughts can influence your circumstances. Number 2, become a master gardener of your mind. Thoughts are like seeds. They will continue to grow and multiply. Starting with strong, optimistic thoughts will lead to more of the same, and maintaining those will lead to a better end result. And number 3, think big. Allen's overarching theme is that any goal is attainable with a well-structured thought process and a strong worth ethic. You will receive that which you earn, no more, no less. So that's from Business Insider, and we're going to be posting a link to it on our website, thinkethmovie.com. You can find the 3 powerful lessons from a classic book that Tony Robbins always recommends right there on our homepage, thinkethmovie.com. And before we move on, we're getting ready to check in with Rev Galen McDowell from Christ Universal Temple. But before we do that, I should probably mention that as we've got these screenings going on all around the country for As a Man Thinketh, we also have, if you're a customer on Amazon Prime, we have this movie, A New Thought, A New You. This is the film that I did a couple years ago, and it's currently available to Amazon Prime members for free streaming. It's just a part of your service. It doesn't cost you anything. To get the DVD is $20, and to download it, I don't know how much that is, but it costs you money. But to Amazon Prime members, for a limited time, you can actually watch this movie for free. So it's a new thought, a new you, and Reverend Galen McDowell is actually in that film. along with Reverend Michael Beckwith, Terry McBride, Della Reese, Wally Amos. There's just a ton of great teachers and speakers, very motivational. Let's see, read the back for you. Get ready for an all-new spiritual exploration through film. Teachers and speakers from across the New Thought movement come together to share their inspiring true stories of personal transformation. A New Thought, a New You will take its audience on an uplifting journey, rising above adversity to living a fulfilling life of peace, well-being, abundance, and purpose. So normally you'd have to pay like $20 to get the DVD, but if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can go on there and find the movie. You can watch it for a limited time for free. So that's really cool. And I want to check in right now with Reverend Galen McDowell from Christ Universal Temple. How are you, Reverend Galen?
I'm excellent. How about yourself, John?
Man, I'm doing great. And, we've been talking about all these different screenings that are happening around the country for the movie As a Man Thinketh, and you guys are doing one at Christ Universal Temple this weekend. And what's really cool to me is that you've got a seminar that you're going to be doing to go along with the movie, right?
Yeah. I thought it would be a different feel to actually have a seminar, some conversation around the book As a Man Thinketh, which you based your movie on.
Yes.
Before we actually watch the movie. So I said, you know what, let's just do a seminar in the movie. We'll talk about As a Man Thinketh. We'll talk about the New Thought principles as, pertaining to the power of thought. What do we teach about thought? What do we teach about universal law? So when people actually watch the movie, they have a context. And then we can talk about the movie after we watch it.
Wow. That's really cool, and I love that different churches are doing stuff like that, because I know one church in Panama City was doing an online class leading up to it, and you guys are doing this. And what do you think it is about this book in particular that makes it such a timeless classic?
Well, first of all, it's very direct.
Yeah,
it's an easy read. You don't have to be a deep spiritual thinker, a deep metaphysical thinker to get the principles of learning how to control your mind. But I think that one of the main things that really comes across in James Allen's work in general is the level of integrity that he calls for the individual to express to demonstrate the principles he's teaching. For instance, he talks a lot about character. He talks a lot about attitude. He talks a lot about who you are as a stand in the world. So when he's talking about working with your mind, he requires the discipline to go along with what he's teaching. For instance, some people think that teaching New Thought principles is almost sort of like magic. Like you say hocus pocus and things just show up.
Yeah.
No, he's saying that to practice these principles, you have to be focused, you have to be disciplined, and I'm going to use a word that's sometimes considered a bad word in New Thought and metaphysical circles. You have to use willpower. For him, you have to keep your mind on what you say you want.
Yeah.
That requires intention. That requires focus. That requires keeping the main thing the main thing. So I love the fact that he doesn't allow people to wiggle out of the responsibility of controlling your own mind.
Yeah, I love that. And, one thing that actually stood out to me as well was he talks about a lot about the development of character. And you don't hear that so much in some of the more modern takes on New Thought. If you look at stuff like The Secret and some of the other teachings that are out there, it becomes very materialistic. And James Allen was very focused on developing character and developing peace in your life.
Yeah, so I have a couple of things to say about that. I think that movies like The Secret and some of other more modern works are, as Michael Beckwith would call, the Trojan horses of New Thought. People are selfish when they function primarily from the personality or ego perspective. So when you start talking about how you can get something, you want to read it, but then you got to find out you have to love, you have to forgive, you have to become grateful, etc. They teach you the principles on the back end. The challenge comes with the play is some people never evolve past the think it, get it stage. When you start talking about learning how to develop in old school New Thought, we would say the Christ consciousness. How do you show up as an awakened spiritual being? That being said, I think that everything has its place.
Sure.
And when you have people who are hungry, before you can start talking about how they need to change their mind, you first need to give them something to eat. And when some people are going through hardcore breakdowns in their lives, the money isn't right, the relationships are broken, the job or the business isn't doing what they thought it should be doing, et cetera, et cetera. When life isn't giving you what you think you should be demonstrating in your life, what those types of materials, books, DVDs, CDs, et cetera, give you is a hook to get you into thinking about how can I shift my thinking to change my life. Now, this gives you the opportunity to focus on some of the deeper things like a James Allen, or if a person wanted to read on prosperity, a book like Prosperity by Charles Fillmore, which talks about the ethical Christian perspective of New Thought.
Yeah.
He's coming from a New Thought Christian perspective. How do you put the teachings of Jesus into this concept of working with universal substance and universal law and many of the other terms we use in New Thought? So I think it does give us an opportunity to grow and evolve, but I don't think that everybody's going to automatically step into New Thought from the perspective of, I got to develop my character first.
Right. No, you're
so
absolutely
I think
right.
that we have to figure out a way of, as a minister, I'm always trying to figure out that way of, how do I speak to the person who doesn't have the background or the context for this message? How do I hook them?
Yeah.
So they'll be willing to listen to what I have to say.
Absolutely.
And it all has its place. I think it's more or less that the divine impulse or desire comes through a soul from spirit, and gives us the opportunity to grow and evolve. So I always tell people that the dream isn't for the now you, it's for the future you. So you do evolve through the accomplishment or the seeking to attain a dream. That being said, spirit in you is already perfect, whole, and complete. Spirit in you doesn't need to grow. That's God. Yeah. The challenge comes into play is it's the soul unfoldment. It's the consciousness unfoldment. It's the awakening process that the journey, that the dream, that the goals give us that we wouldn't know or learn about ourselves. And sometimes it's working through our own nature. So, for an example, Charles Fillmore's 12 Powers of Man concept, people, the colors of the month and the disciple and the faculty and all that stuff is great. But the concept is to develop an awakened Christ being. That's really the point of it.
Yeah.
Like, you study this so you can become like Jesus.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of the 12 powers. But people study it from the standpoint, I just got to activate my faith, or I'm wearing royal blue, which is great because that's how we hook people in.
Yeah.
But when you read the book, Fillmore will say, and I don't want to start talking about Fillmore because we're talking about James Allen, but my point is, he will say in the book, for those who still want these human things, don't study this. This isn't for the selfish ego. This is a complete surrendering to the transformational spirit in your soul. And I think James Allen speaks to that same principle. He's basically saying that when you understand the power and intelligence, and more importantly, the love that's within you,
right,
and you take conscious control of your thinking, the sky's the limit on who you can be, not what you can have.
Yeah.
Who you can be, because when you get the who you can be part right, you don't have to worry about what you can have. I think that's James Allen's focus, and I think that's the purity of the early New Thought, metaphysical, mind science, science of mind, and all the other terms that used back then movement.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this. I'm guessing that you have recently reread it in preparation for the seminar, right?
Yes, I had to make an outline.
Yeah. Are you? Was there anything that really stood out as you kind of reread it that we haven't touched on already?
He talks a lot about growth and evolution. You know, I
Yeah.
remember when I originally read it, you know, I was reading it more for the perspective of how do I get what I want?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, just like we just talked about
Sure.
before. The fishes and the loaves. You know, Jesus, when he met people who were hungry, he didn't say, you know, I have meat to eat that you know not of for other people. He said that for about himself. But the other people, he said, let's feed these people some fishes and some loaves. So I went looking for the fishes and the loaves.
Mm.
But what I discovered was, again, just how serious he was about cultivating the mind. Just for an example, in the first chapter, he talks about man is a growth by law. I love that. Man is a growth by law. This isn't something that's happening by happenstance.
Yeah.
Okay? You know, he says, then he goes on to say in that same paragraph, a noble and godlike character is not a thing of favor or chance, but is the natural result of continued effort in right thinking, the effect of long cherished association with God-like thoughts. So he's re-emphasizing, for me, why it is important to keep my mind in alignment with truth or the divine principle.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate so much of what you're doing and sharing this movie with your congregation and stuff. And I know you've had a chance to preview it, right?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot.
Man, that's awesome.
And I saw friends of mine in it too.
Oh, yeah?
Reverend Sherry James,
Yeah.
you know, Reverend Sheila McKeithen, who are part of the Universal Foundation for Better Living with me. Reverend McKeithen obviously is the president.
Sure.
And, you know, some other friends of the ministry, like Reverend Edwin Gaines or Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith, et cetera. So, yeah, it was good seeing friends in it. David Alexander, Reverend David Alexander,
Sure.
folks like that, you know. Yeah, I think what you're doing is fantastic, great work, and it was necessary. It's necessary. I especially like the fact that you are using a narrative and the interviews to teach.
Yeah.
Because I think the way people learn today is a little different. You know, as I was reading As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, it made me realize that when people were reading his book, they didn't have radio.
Right.
Or if most people didn't, if they did have it. I don't think radio was even around then. If it was for the privileged few.
Sure, sure.
No TV, obviously. No internet. No mobile phones. No cable TV. No distraction. So when people read, they read with intensity and focus.
Sure.
Now we have distraction, and people learn by being connected to people. So, you know, just like people are watching their favorite TV shows or their movies, they become connected to the characters.
Yeah.
I think what you did was allow someone within the point of view of a movie narrative to be an everyman. Okay.
Yeah.
A person who can be, having issues at work or at home or without giving the movie away.
Right.
And and trying to figure out life.
Yeah.
You know, that's where a lot of people are. That's where everybody is. Everybody's
Sure.
trying to figure life out.
Well, and that's the thing. You know, we tried
go ahead.
I was just gonna say we tried to include a lot of the different elements of the book in the film. You know, and of course the book itself is, you know, it's obviously it's a nonfiction book, but we tried to include a lot of those elements so that the storyline is kind of interweaved with the different elements of what the book is talking about.
Yeah. And from a minister's perspective, I think that the work you're doing is exceptionally valuable. In any movement for it to grow and evolve, you have to be able to have different entry points. You know, you have ministers, and it's our job to preach and teach and, you know, and take care of, quote unquote, the flock as they come into centers or whatever way we're ministering to people. You have people who are scholars, people who write the books, and university levels. Eventually, almost every religion gets to the point where they have universities that teach their
Sure.
theological positions. But you also have people who have to be able to bring people in through popular culture.
Yeah.
How do we teach this to people? You know, like Oprah did with A New Earth with Eckhart Tolle and some of the other things. how do we bring people in ways that they know and understand already? People who might not ever walk into a church,
Sure,
but they'll watch a movie and then say, it's something to that. Let me go get that book. Now, where are they teaching principles like I discovered in this movie? It gives people an opportunity to start Googling names.
That's
Who's
right.
this Reverend McKeaton? Who's this Reverend Beckwith, etc.? What do they stand for? What are they about? Are they connected to anybody in my area?
Right.
How can I get connected to them? So in a real way, what you're doing is creating a new platform that didn't exist. And I just want to applaud you for that publicly. So as this podcast goes wherever it needs to go, people recognize that the work that you're doing is extremely important. And people should get behind it. You know, if there's ever, if somebody's out there listening and you fund movies, he's a person you should put your money behind. He'll produce stuff that can help the world, not just help a pocketbook. And we want to help your pocketbook because we teach prosperity.
That's right.
But we want to be able to help the pocketbook and be a difference in the world. And I believe that your work can do it, and it is doing it.
Wow. Well, I appreciate that so much. I can't even tell you, you know, that's, I just appreciate so much of what you're doing and just being supportive of it. And of course you were in A New Thought, A New You. And I know you guys played that movie at Christ Universal Temple as well. And,
Yes.
but I just thank you so much for being on the show here today. And is there anything else you want to add to what we've already talked about?
Well, what I will say is, for those who are listening to this podcast, buy a movie and the booklet. As a Man Thinketh, it's like a $3 booklet.
That's right.
You can get it from Divorce and Company, and gift it to someone.
Yeah.
You know, if you believe that the principles you've learned have impacted, helped, and transformed your life, is to help you get better. Give somebody else the opportunity to get better. So get them because they might not read the book first, but they might watch the movie. Let them watch the movie, and that'll make them want to read the book. Bless somebody else. Buy, obviously, your own copy. And then bless somebody else with it as well. It'll make all the difference because the universal law of giving and receiving says give, then receive. So if you want blessings, be a blessing.
That's great. All right. Thank you so much, Reverend Galen. And of course, once again, you can, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can go on there and you can watch A New Thought, A New You with Reverend Galen McDowell and many others in the film, and it's available to you for free if you're a Prime member. So let's go ahead and let's dig into this week's lesson. This is about our thoughts and how it affects our bodies and our health. And we're checking in right now with Marianne Padalano. All right, now we're on with Marianne Padalano, who is featured in the film As a Man Thinketh. She's a religious science practitioner and also an author. It's good to have you here, Marianne.
Yes. Hi, John. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and let's dig right into the book.
Yes.
The section we're on is Effect of Thought on Health and the Body.
Yes.
And in the movie, there's a selection where he's reading. He says, "The body is the servant of the mind. It obeys the operations of the mind, whether they be deliberately chosen or automatically expressed." And so it's kind of interesting because right off the bat, he's talking about how our thoughts have this relationship with our body, whether we're intentional about it or not.
Yes. And once again, the whole premise of the book really also is the subconscious as well. It's not just the conscious thoughts. And I think that even in today's society, the mind-body connection is well documented, and it's it's accepted. It's widely accepted in both the science and the medical community. So, and this was written so long ago, and it holds to be true. That holds to be true.
Yeah, well, it's funny. It's like the things that we have instinctively known to be true in so many different cultures over the years. We find out that medical science kind of echoes a lot of those same thoughts. And one of the things that I find interesting, it occurred to me this week because I've been dealing with my own little allergies and stuff this week.
Yes, I know.
And I think that a lot of people, they don't really realize, they think that the body is just doing what the body does, and then that they just sort of react to what the body is doing. But they don't understand that there's a two-way communication that can happen between the body and the mind. And whereas your body can communicate something to you and be telling you something, your mind can go back and tell your body something too.
Yes, yes, it is. It's a two-way street. And the body and health is actually an effect of thinking and thought. And the book gets into that as far as he says that disease and health are rooted in thought.
Yeah.
So that's exactly to your point, that the body and the mind, once again, are just connected. Yes. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that. They put one before the other or the other before the, so.
Yeah,
right,
well, I think that's the thing. They think that they have to go and they have to listen to what their body is telling them, and they don't realize that they can go back to their body and tell the body something.
Right, tell the body to be well. Or
right.
When with James Allen, he actually gets into the thoughts such as fear, anxiety, malice, and the disappointment, things like that, that could show up. Now, that doesn't mean that, when you get a cold but it is something to consider if your immune system is actually being lowered in some way. He mentions that in effect as well.
Well, and he's got this other line in here. It says, anxiety quickly demoralizes the whole body and lays open to it the entrance of disease. Yeah. And I've had that happen before where back, several years back, I got so jealous of somebody who was having success that I wasn't having at that particular time. I actually made myself sick off of it. Yeah. And we can do that.
Yes. Anxiety, worry, that all just comes back to you. If you're putting that energy out, and every cell in your body is responding to that. So it's probably best when people have success or whatever, to bless them and be like, cool for you. That means it's possible for me, right? But that happens to everybody, though. Everybody gets envious or anxious but I think the key is to recognize that and make those episodes smaller, right? And turn towards the positive once you realize that, because it happens to everybody. Yeah.
Well, and there's so many different little anecdotal stories that you hear of people in the hospital that, they find themselves like a comedy or something that just makes them laugh. And that begins the whole stage of healing for them, that once they get their body outside of that pain and that immediate suffering that they're going through, that they're able to open themselves up to healing.
Yes, exactly. And that's also been proven. Laughter, comedy, even the piece of animals, like, pets and that sort of thing, can help in healing. And that is the mind getting away from the problem, let's say, and focusing on the beauty or peace of an animal or a pet, or focusing on laughter, which is known to heal many things. It heals your mood automatically, right?
Yeah. And I kept trying to tell myself, this past week, I didn't go and watch, comedies or anything like that, but I kept telling myself, I was like, your body may be going through this right now, but I can still do everything that I need to do this week. I can still get done everything that I need to get done. I might just have to rest here or there and make sure I take, the proper medicines and that sort of thing. But, if I'm just patient, let my body go through what it needs to go through, then I can get everything done that I need to get done.
Yeah, and those are great thoughts and a great approach, I would think. Because you're not focusing on the problem. You're saying, okay, and it's not also necessarily denying that there's an issue. Maybe there is an issue, but it's not the total truth of you. And it's certainly not the spiritual truth of you that you're, quote, sick, that sort of thing, or in your health. So that's a whole physical teaching, really. Yeah. So that would be to focus on the positive, what you can do, and know that a healing is coming. So that thought will bring a healing, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because you expect it. It's expectation as well.
Yeah, well, you know, and it occurs to me that, you know, because you say that as far as your focus and stuff, it occurs to me that whenever we pray, you know, we are putting our focus on not the illness or the disease or whatever it is that we're currently going through. We're putting our focus on what is beyond that, or what is
the divine,
the deeper truth of who we are, that on some level we are whole, healthy, and complete, even though we're not experiencing it in our bodies at that particular moment.
Right, exactly. And that's like the basis of affirmative prayer, which I teach and do as a practitioner, is that the truth of us is that we are complete and whole. And healthy, but just because this experience is happening does not mean that that's still not true. And so when we focus on that truth, the divine truth of ourselves, and therein lies the healing process.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Let's see. So, and then he sort of towards the end of this section, he says, to live continually in thoughts of ill will, cynicism, suspicion, and envy is to be confined in a self-made prison hole.
Prison, yes.
Yeah, and so we can confine ourselves to a prison with our thoughts, and that can manifest itself in our bodies. That's what we're talking about.
Yes, and if you think about that, that is all your own creation, right? And like we just discussed, you can change your mind at any moment. And I think in sort of like New Thought and the stuff that we teach, that would be an analogy to that would be, quote, hell. Like you're in hell or prison when you're consumed by those thoughts. And once again, it's not that it never happens. It's just to keep them short so you don't keep your suffering longer. You know, and it's true. And if you can eliminate them, of course, but at least shorten them and recognize that there's damage, that, you know, that you're in a prison by holding these thoughts in place.
That's really good.
Absolutely.
That's really good. Is there anything you wanted to add from this particular section before we move on?
Well, I think I took some notes too, and he was, James Allen says, you know, happy, pure, empowering thoughts strengthen the body. So just for and he also says clean heart, clean life. So I just would encourage viewers just to be mindful, you know, just be mindful, and that it's not just the easiest thing sometimes, but, and just, it's not to be trite and say, oh, positive thinking, but just be mindful. This is a way to introduce being mindful of your thoughts, beliefs, and feelings, and to be healthy.
Use those affirmations
to
make yourself whole, healthy, and complete. Absolutely. Well, now, y'all just recently had a screening of As a Man Thinketh at your center there in Raleigh. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah, it was so exciting. A lot of folks came out, and everybody enjoyed it. There was laughter at some parts, and one person came up to me and even put this on social media that said that she enjoyed it more than The Secret.
Wow, that's awesome.
Everybody just enjoyed it. And there's going to be another screening in North Carolina, and another person, actually a different person, said to me, heck, I enjoyed the movie so much, I may go to that screening as well, because they want to see it again. So the feedback is so positive, and it's really speaking to people. It really is. It's really just a great film.
That's awesome. And of course, you're a part of the film. Did they clap when you came on the screen, Marianne?
They did. I was like, oh, great. Yeah, so it was really a cool experience for me.
That's really cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was wild for me. Yes.
That's awesome. And you got to address some questions and comments and stuff. And what was there anything else that people shared, or did they have any other particular questions?
Well, some people shared that this is their favorite book. Like we have said in different conversations. Everybody is familiar with the book, and people just said that they actually love the book. So they said that. They were also interested in just the availability of the film after the screening. So,
You know what's fascinating to me is I've gotten to hear back from a few people that have seen the film, And they have told me that, you know, even though this book is 115 years old now, that the film, it is very timely.
Yes.
And that is the thing that makes me feel really good. And it almost kind of surprised me the first time I heard it, but it does make a lot of sense.
True.
Yeah.
It's true. Because in the film, you focus on sort of current events and, you know, all these crazy medicines and all this, you know, the media that's always at us. And it totally speaks to what is happening right now in the news, in the world. And it is amazing that such an old, quote, antique book is relevant, is totally relevant. And the way you weaved modern society or a modern story into the premise of the book was just great. And it actually does. It's so timely for right now, what the society is going through. Yes.
Well, I think it speaks to the fact that this book itself is such a timeless classic. And
timeless, yes.
Yeah, and we can take different elements of what's going on in the book and then apply it to film, and we can make it in a way that not only gets a point across, not only teaches something, but gets it in an experiential way that we can feel it.
Yes, everybody can relate to it, to parts of the film, I believe, because everybody can relate to it in some way. That's awesome. So I think it's great.
You know,
I'm so proud to be a part of it.
Well, I appreciate you being a part of it. And one of the things that I just thought about whenever we're talking about the timeliness of it, and it goes along with what we've been talking about this week, health in the body in particular, is, you know, we're inundated with all these commercials. And it's it's almost like these commercials are telling us that there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. And we have the magic elixir that's going to fix all of your ills. And if we see these messages enough and we're not actively you know, telling ourselves we are whole, healthy, and complete just as we are, that we begin to think that there's something wrong with us, and maybe
we'll believe it.
Right, and we believe it. We buy it, hook, line, and sinker, and you know, we need this magic elixir that's going to fix us. And the message of this book and this movie overall is that, you know, no, what you need to do is you need to realize the manifestation of God that you really are. Yes.
Exactly. And so the challenge in today's society with this media and everything that's always thrown at us is to not let it, you know, sink into your subconscious, not take that on as a belief. It's just not true. But, you know, once again, if there's this repetition, but just like we can repeat the truth to ourselves to keep the truth active. But if we keep repeating something that's not true, or the media, and we believe it or we buy into it, therein lies the problem, right? Right. And the book, of course, just disputes that entirely, right? It is up to us, and we do have control.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, now, before we get off of here, what would you like to, I know you have a book out, Perception, the Peephole.
About perception, exactly.
Tell us a little bit about your book and where we can find more of what you've got going on.
Okay, the book is called The Peephole Effect, Perception is Everything. And it deals with what we're talking about, sort of the subconscious mind, and how these things just get lodged in our minds and they keep replaying over and over and over. You know, I call it the merry-go-round, let's say, right? And it discusses the reasons why we get stuck in that thinking, right? Which is usually comfort. We feel comfort with what has always been. We're fearful of change. We think we have control. You know, our ego takes control. And so the book addresses these issues and discusses steps to altering that, which is kind of like what we're talking about, making a conscious choice, choosing intentionally our thoughts and our beliefs and our feelings, and becoming mindful. So the book is based on that.
That's awesome. And where can they find it?
It's on Amazon.com or MariannePavolano.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I know everybody's looking forward to seeing you in this film, As a Man Thinketh, and and they'll be able to check out more of you on your website. And appreciate you so much for joining us, and you're also helping with some of the screenings. So
yes,
tell us
so
a little.
People can contact me.
Yeah, they can contact you.
Yes. You can go to info@mariannepatalano.com. Actually, send a note to info@mariannepatalano.com. Or, I'm all over social media, so just contact me if your center wants to schedule a screening. And I'm reaching out to New Thought centers, to Unity, CSL, and other New Thought centers. So everybody can feel comfortable to just send me a note, contact me. Like I said, I'm all over the place, so just any social media, and I'd be happy to send the information and get you scheduled.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate so much everything that you're doing to help with this film and everything that you have done, being a part of it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
And we'll be checking again with you soon.
Okay, great. Right. Take care.
Thanks, Marianne. And we appreciate y'all joining us here on iThinketh. You can always go to our website, thinkethmovie.com. You can find out more about the film. You can find out where it's going to be screening, and when it's available, it'll be available right there on our website, thinkethmovie.com. And we invite you to go there, read the book. We have a link right there where you can read the book. And we hope you'll join us next time right here on iThinketh.
As you think, so you will become.
Why? Why? Always me. Why?
But you notice it all begins with thought. James Allen was one of the first to do that, and he did it so crystal clear that it's still relevant today.
As a Man Thinketh, as his most popular book, was very widely read, very widely quoted. Its ideas were very widely adopted. It influenced a whole generation of self-help writers.
How is it that you have no wife,
no job, but you still don't have time to look over a freaking letter and sign it?
What a man thinketh, or what a woman thinketh in their heart, has a tendency to come into their life. So the law doesn't discriminate between, I'm very, very, very afraid of this, or I'm very, very available to this.
Do you want more?
I love that book. James Allen's book, As a Man Thinketh, is wonderful. Thoughts held in mind reproduce after their own kind. So when you hold something in mind and you let it move down into your heart and your feeling nature, you become extremely powerful.
A man sooner or later discovers that he is the master gardener of his soul, the director of his life.